Over 2,000 years ago, the conflict between Athens and Sparta established a psychological pattern. It demonstrated how power shifts foster systemic fear between rivals. This map shows the geographic reality in 431 BC. Sparta was the established dominant force on the peninsula. But as Athens expanded its naval and economic reach, Spartan leaders grew increasingly concerned about the long-term security of their own state. In 2012, Harvard political scientist Graham Allison applied these ancient insights to the 21st century, popularizing the term the Thucydides Trap. This table identifies 16 instances over the last 500 years where a rising power challenged an existing one. In 12 of those 16 cases, the transition resulted in war. Only 4 managed to navigate the shift without large-scale conflict. The historical record suggests that while war is not an absolute certainty, it has been the dominant outcome when the global balance of power shifts. Today, observers identify the United States as the ruling power and China as the rising challenger. This chart tracks the GDP index of major economies since 2007. It shows China's rapid transition to a global economic power. Notice the red line's trajectory. It closes the gap at a rate that leaves the international order struggling to adjust. This competition is driven by conflicting goals. Beijing prioritizes national rejuvenation to restore its historical influence, while Washington focuses on its own industrial restoration. The central question of our time is whether these two trajectories can coexist, or if they will repeat the pattern of the Peloponnesian War. While the fear of being displaced remains consistent, the domain of competition has moved. The current struggle centers on artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and semiconductor technology. However, modern globalization has introduced a variable that did not exist for ancient Greece: deep economic interdependence. Thousands of containers move between these nations daily. Their economies are linked through complex supply chains that are difficult to untangle. During the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union maintained separate financial systems. Today, a direct military conflict would likely lead to catastrophic ruin for both the victor and the vanquished. Middle powers like South Korea are caught in the middle of this connection. They rely on the United States for their security, while depending on China for their economic prosperity. This shared economic bloodstream makes the prospect of a traditional, large-scale war a self-destructive choice for both sides. Taiwan serves as the ultimate test of this deterrent. For Beijing, the island is a core matter of national honor. For Washington, it is a vital strategic link in the Western Pacific. Because Taiwan produces the world's most advanced semiconductors, any disruption there would immediately halt global technology production. The primary risk is not a planned march to war, but an accidental escalation triggered by the intense military and political activity in the region. While economic ties provide a reason for restraint, flashpoints like Taiwan show that the underlying structural tensions are still active. In May 2026, Donald Trump and Xi Jinping met in Beijing to address these rising tensions directly. The meeting was characterized by a mix of intense competition over trade and highly choreographed diplomacy intended to project stability. During the summit, the two leaders took a quiet walk through the grounds of the Temple of Heaven. For centuries, this site was used by emperors to pray for harmony. The walk served as a physical signal that both sides recognized the need for strategic restraint. President Xi notably referenced the Thucydides Trap during his remarks, questioning if the two countries could find a way to avoid it. While the leaders of ancient Greece often struggled to de-escalate these systemic pressures, modern policymakers are using those historical failures as an explicit tool to negotiate a different outcome. Scholars question the framework, arguing that focusing on an inevitable outcome might actually make war more likely. Critics note the theory ignores domestic politics and smooth power transitions, like the shift from Britain to the United States. If leaders believe conflict is determined by history, they may invest less in diplomacy and more in military preparation, creating a dangerous cycle of escalation. Graham Allison argues his framework is not a prediction of catastrophe, but a geopolitical smoke detector. It is intended to alert leaders that the conditions for conflict are high. Escaping the trap requires a disciplined effort to separate economic rivalry from military confrontation. History shows that the fear generated during power transitions is a recurring challenge. However, coexistence remains a viable path if nations treat these patterns as warnings to heed rather than a script they are forced to follow.